Welcome to the Nonprofit Report, your update on nonprofit organizations, issues, and leaders, viewable on M. Oppenheim TV and YouTube. I'm your host, Mark Oppenheim. Today, we're discussing supporting immigrant families in Napa Valley with our special guests, Blanca Huijon, Executive Director of Puertas, Abiertas, Jenny Ocon, Executive Director of UpValley Family Centers, Madeline Hernandez, the North Bay Regional Directing Attorney of the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area, and Alissa Abdo, Executive Director of On the Move. So I want to thank you all for joining us. It's a really important topic. It's an issue that has really plagued the United States for so long in terms of grappling with the human costs of our dysfunctional immigration system, where we have full economies, as is true for Napa Valley, that are totally dependent on people who come to this country to work. Yet we have no working visa approach. We have no approach to ensure that people are here, receive respect and appropriate integration to society. We just seem to shamble along in this approach that has real human costs. So let's talk a little bit about how you all came together, because you really are an alliance. You're a number of different organizations. You were knitted together by yourselves, members of the community, the Napa Valley Community Foundation. So Blanca, why don't you start off and talk a little bit about Puertas, Abiertas, and then we'll go to Jenny and Madeline, and each of you can talk a little bit about your organizations, and then we'll talk about the issue.
Puertas Abiertas has been around almost 20 years. So we became a 501c3 back in 2005. And our mission focused on the trust of our Latino community to strengthen that community with bicultural programs. So we offer 5 pillars. One of the pillars is self-sufficiency, and also the other one is wellness, health and wellness educations, along with other programs that follow under those pillars. And then the other pillar that as we came as a collaborative is the civic engagement, legal navigation. So we have a variety of programs that are based on the needs of our community.
And you're primarily serving working families, right, Blanca?
Yes. So we focus on serving the Latino community for those low-income families that we serve about over 3,000 community members each year. And we focus just in Napa Valley, serving those who work here and also live here in the valley. Those who we serve, their income is about $40,000 annually. So we're really serving those who are really in need.
And Jenny, you also are serving, your services overlap, and this is going to be true for everyone here, right? Everybody's overlapping, everybody's trying to provide a different range of services to, but very often these same families. Jenny, talk a little bit about UpValley Family Centers.
It might be helpful to just kind of talk a little bit about our model, because we are a county-wide collaborative of organizations. And the way that the model works is we've got family resource centers that are community-based and in specific neighborhoods and communities who have trust and reach within those communities across our county. And then Immigration Institute of the Bay Area provides the legal services and kind of oversight for the immigration legal services program. So our organization, the UpValley Family Centers, is located in the northernmost part of the county. And it's a little bit more geographically isolated. We have offices in Calistoga and St. Helena. And I think, across the board for the family resource centers, the things that we do are provide accessible services to people and a place that's trusted by the community, that's known by the community. we serve a large portion of the workforce in the Napa Valley, and the Napa Valley is known for wine. And we have, I would say it's about 75% of workers in vineyard and wine industry are immigrants. And so that's just a little bit about kind of how we all fit together. UpValley Family Centers has been operating as a family resource center up in the UpValley for 25 years.
This is one of the reasons why I referred to this as an issue that has plagued us. We have whole regions of the country that are reliant, and Napa Valley is one of them, reliant on these individuals who they're not able to necessarily earn enough money through their labor to be housing insecure or income secure in any sense. Yet we have whole regions whose economies depend on those relationships. So, Madeline, I'm going to come back to you in a bit. I'm gonna end with you there, but let's go to Alissa. Alissa, talk about On the Move.
So On the Move is a parent organization for several large initiatives that all address different equity issues. And we operate 5 school-based family resource centers in partnership with Napa Valley Unified School District, which are located on the highest needs elementary school campuses in our county. And we provide a range of social services. We also do parent education and provide parent leadership opportunities.
One of the things that I think is so interesting here is that we basically have developed in this country a system that requires that people who are working and contributing to the economy get legal representation so that they don't necessarily have to live in fear and are able to navigate the various aspects of dysfunction that we have when it comes to interacting with whole swaths of our society. Madeline, talk a little bit about the role of the North Bay Regional Directing Attorney for the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area.
IIBA, or the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area, we have been in Napa since 2013. And I'll just talk a little bit about kind of how we came here and how our organizations got together. So in 2012, the Napa Valley Community Foundation funded a study by the Migration Policy Institute that showed several things about the impact of immigrants in Napa County. And there were many findings in that study. One of them, as Jenny mentioned, was that 73% of the ag workforce are immigrants. It also showed that about 23% of individuals in Napa are foreign born, but they account for 33% of the workforce in Napa. So, we know that there are a lot of immigrants here in Napa and that they are contributing to our economy. They are part of our community. They are part of our schools, our everything. One thing that the study found also was that green card holders were becoming U.S. citizens at a lower rate than the rest of California. And so one thing that the Napa Valley Community Foundation did was they looked at the reasons maybe why that was happening. And one of the reasons they found was because there was a lack of affordable legal services in Napa. And so they wanted to bring in a legal service provider, and they did a statewide search and they found IIBA. IIBA is a nonprofit, and we provide immigration legal services, outreach, and education to the community. And they asked us to open an office in Napa, but they knew that, we were going to be the new kid on the block. And so they wanted to partner us with trusted family resource centers. So they partnered us with Puertas, Abiertas, On the Move, and UpValley Family Centers so that we could create this initiative, this collaborative of trusted legal resources, but also be able to provide sort of education around why it's important to become a U.S. citizen. Why is it important to go to a trusted immigration legal service provider and get high quality legal advice. We've been working with our trusted partners to provide information around pathways to U.S. citizenship or other statuses, as well as around know your rights information, policy changes, new executive orders. Different administrations have different policies. And so regardless of whether we have an anti-immigrant administration or pro-immigrant administration, there are going to be changes that we need to react to. And so having the infrastructure in place, having this partnership in place, being able to provide accurate information and proper referrals is really important.
The thing that I don't quite understand, and I'd like you all to comment on this. The largest winemakers in Napa are E.J. Gallo, the wine group, Constellation Brands, and Trinchero, the Trinchero family estates. We have an entire industry in this country that is built on this type of labor, and beyond that, if you take a look at the Central Valley, the farming areas of California, if you take a look at the extractive industries, if you take a look at poultry processing or cattle processing industries, these industries are all built on this kind of interactions between people who are recently coming to this country, and sometimes not so recently, but they still have immigration status. In a sense, are you all part of the basis that allows that whole system to function? Because you can't have people who are not able to access services, not able to have family stability, not able to go to work because they're afraid for their kids. You're all filling in those gaps. You're all part of that ability to have these whole swaths of this country actually work and live together and have a cohesive community, aren't you? How important are you?
Well, I would say we're very important because, and that's really kind of the essence of why we thought this collaborative would work so well. Family resource centers are, by their name, designed to strengthen families through prevention type services available in local communities. And it's really to be tailored based on and reflective of what those communities are all about. And so in the Napa Valley, a huge part of our community is the immigrant community. And that's driven by, and our communities are driven by the economic forces, and that is in large part the wine industry. And so having accessible resources that are available to everyone in the community, and then targeted to their specific needs, is actually not just strengthening that family, but the entire community as a whole. And I think that many, in our community understand that. I think sometimes they don't, though, and there are lots of services that they don't understand are needed. And that's part of the challenge in part of our work, is to help people and kind of make visible what sometimes is invisible, particularly in a community that is known and marked by tourism. And people come and they see a lot of beautiful things. They visit the wineries, but they don't really understand some of the challenges and the hardships that working families really have.
I would also add that one of the things that is important in terms of our role is to advocate and to help provide education to the community, to government entities about what the needs are and what resources are needed in order to support folks in having dignity and respect in the community, and also to have access to the resources and services that they need.
Well, I was going to say, right, Blanca, a lot of this has to do with creating an awareness. We see, in terms of support from organizations like the Napa Valley Community Foundation, where you have winery owners, winemakers, those people who are civic leaders in Napa coming together to support and help form these kinds of coalitions. We actually see that awareness taking place. We see that awareness manifest in the tourism industry, who employ a lot of the people that were referenced by Madeline. But part of your role is to also educate the rest of us who are not necessarily so aware, because we don't employ people who use your services, right?
Yeah, a lot of what we do in the education aspect is presentations around, as I mentioned, know your rights, but not just to the immigrant community themselves, but to employers, trusted messengers, so other nonprofits that serve the same community that we do, to make sure that everyone feels comfortable talking about certain topics, and also so that we have the same message. So there's not mixed messages in the community, so that if someone is there's a parent at a school is getting information from their principal, it's going to be the same information that we're providing as the collaborative that has the knowledge. And so we want to make sure that we're training our trusted messengers in this community, our government officials, our nonprofit leaders, our winery owners, so that everyone's sort of aware of the changes and the fears and the reality of what's going on.
It's just giving them just the tools, but it's also to avoid for our community, vulnerable community, to be a victims of a fraud. And we have seen that, how people are taking advantage of the needs of our community. That's how we have been creating the trust of our community to provide them the right tools.
Can you talk a little bit more about what kind of how that manifests of taking advantage of people in the immigrant community?
I mean, just give you examples of what is happening right now, like the red cards, or is explaining the rights under the Constitution. Like, okay, don't open the door if ICE comes to your house. Exercise those rights, but people are selling those cards. So also the yellow cards that comes from the Norway Rapid Response. So that's a hotline where people can call for. I mean, we will explain a little bit more later on that one. But also, also the other thing as a collaborative that we are trying to do is that people go, as Maddie mentioned, to go to attorney instead of a notary, because notary are not responsible as a attorney. Also, people that are making false promises, like, we will get you a green card and pay us this amount, and this is gonna be faster. So just those examples. I mean, there is more that probably Maddie can share, but that's why we just trying to creating that safety net for our community for the legal resources aspect.
Do you care to elucidate, Maddie?
Yeah, I think that Blanca said it great. We have individuals that may be in a vulnerable situation, undocumented, and if they hear that they have a pathway to citizenship, then they're going to take it, and they may be willing to pay whatever the individual says they need to pay. And unfortunately, the information is coming from an individual who is not authorized to practice law in the United States, and so the information is incorrect. And what's happening is they're actually being put in a situation where they're putting them more at risk, because now they're providing all of their information to immigration and they don't actually qualify for this immigration benefit. So many times when we do immigration consultations, we are seeing the results of this fraud. And sometimes people are put in really bad situations that they can't get out of because of it. Part of our outreach that we do through this collaborative is to talk about who are the trusted legal service providers in Napa County, who is authorized to provide immigration legal services in Napa County. And so we have several, we have a couple nonprofits here, but IIBA is one of them. And then UpValley Family Centers does have an immigration program as well. And they are also able to provide immigration legal services through their Department of Justice accredited representatives. And so we really try to disseminate the information to the community about who to go to. And that's why the proper referrals is so important. So we really try to speak to all of the organizations that work with the immigrant community, so they're aware as well of who to refer to.
In the last years, that there's been an increase in the fear quotient that has hit these areas of the country that depend on immigrant workforces. Could you comment, Jenny, on what you've experienced over the last couple of years and how you've responded to that increase in fear and insecurity and traumatization of children and so on?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that a lot of it is, you know, kind of the rhetoric that's at the national level, and also, frankly, on the news and on social media, that creates a level of anxiety and concern among our community members who are concerned about their immigration status. We've as a community-based organization, our goal is to help people have accurate information about their rights, as well as about trying to make sure that it's not a rumor that they're thinking about, that they have the facts. If there are, concerns about an ICE raid or something like that, it's trying to make sure that people are not spreading that fear without accurate information about it, but that people are prepared. And one way that we have been helping people to prepare is, number one, by doing Know Your Rights workshops. And so people understand that everybody in this country has constitutional rights, regardless of their immigration status. And so that they understand what those are. Also having the opportunity to do a preparedness plan. So in the case that a family member is subject to deportation, what is the rest of the household doing in that kind of a situation? So I think that those are some examples. I think, it's sort of ebbed and flowed in terms of the levels of fear. I'd say that we're at a high point right now. And we're all in our organizations having lots of conversations with families and community members about their concerns. We've had people quite upset about, either their parents or their children. We do work with both kids and with adults. Of course, immigrant families are mixed. And so there's lots of challenges that come up through the course of any one of our programs along those lines.
Is part of the point here of creating fear is to try and suppress discussion of this issue? One of the things that I'm a little worried about, I'm very worried about it, is the whole idea of hiding, of encouraging people to hide, encouraging people not to be part of the dialogue, encouraging employers to not support organizations like yours, encouraging journalists not to discuss the issues here. Is what's going on, because if you don't discuss a problem, you can't resolve it, right? So you basically promulgate it, and then you try to get rid of it. And this whole idea that we can deport our way out of this ridiculous situation is completely insane. For one thing, if you take a look at economies that depend on this relationship with immigrants, if you deport all the immigrants, what will happen with the economy? It won't just sort itself out, right? How do you deal with the issue as an attorney, Maddie, with this whole idea of shut up, just don't talk about it?
I think that one of the main points of the fear tactic is to suppress access to resources that individuals do qualify for, is to scare the vulnerable populations to not access these resources. So one direct impact we're seeing is, and we saw last Trump administration, and we're starting to see now, and I don't know if this is directly answering your question, but one thing is not accessing Medi-Cal, for example, resources that directly have to do with healthcare. And so individuals are not accessing healthcare services. They're not going to hospitals. until it's to the point of an emergency, and then we're inundating emergency rooms. And so something that I'm doing and IIBA is doing to directly respond to that is we are working on including in our Know Your Rights information, information around, it's called public charge, but it has to do with accessing healthcare. And so we're working with other organizations in Napa, such as CHI. We actually have a training on Monday to 180 health and human services workers to talk specifically about this issue, about individuals not wanting to access services that are needed, like Medi-Cal, CalFresh, low-income housing, food programs, things like that. And so as an attorney, the way that I combat that, or the way that I respond to that, is I make sure that individuals know their rights, including what benefits they can access and that will not affect their immigration status and that will not affect future immigration statuses. And as an attorney, I feel as well that it's important for me to train other trusted messengers, such as Health and Human Service Agency staff, which are called health access workers, I think, or I can't remember what their titles are, but the individuals who process, Medi-Cal applications, so that they also are aware that, individuals there are certain benefits that immigrants are eligible for that won't affect their status. And so it's really important for not just IIBA and our attorneys to know that, but also for other individuals who work with the immigrant population to know that, so we can ensure that people are accessing very important services.
So, Alissa, your organization cultivates young leaders. What do the young leaders of this community think about what's going on here?
They're very frustrated and afraid and confused about what's happening. They are resolute in their commitment to changing the conditions by which their family members and their friends and their community members experience our community as immigrants. And they also have doubled down on their commitment to working directly with families as a people who have gone through this themselves, providing that connection and providing the opportunity for them to feel the dignity and respect that they deserve.
Are they feeling like if they speak up, they might be putting their friends and families at risk?
I think they are concerned about that. They are oftentimes putting aside their own fears and worries for the benefit of the community, and are driven by their values and their experiences. And so I think with the support of organizations like ours, they're more willing and able to take risks and know kind of where the line is in terms of putting their own families at risk. But it's something that I believe is always in the back of their mind.
I think just to your point about fear and kind of speaking up, one thing that I think really sort of I've noticed is that with the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, the DACA program, and the challenges to that, but the fact that it helped so many young people, young professionals, people who are doing so much in the community, to have that pathway to contribute and be woven into a lot of different sectors. Those individuals, of course, are that status is kind of a renewing temporary status. However, it has allowed a large number of people to really speak to their dilemma individually, and not be afraid, and really, that's the whole Dreamer movement. And I think that's been incredibly important to really help people in the community understand why immigration reform is necessary and what we're missing when we don't have people who can contribute so robustly able to do so, with no pathways. So I do think that particular group of individuals in our nation has raised their voices very clearly, and it's and they're an important they have important messages to share.
So let's go around the table. If we were going to fix this situation as a country, right, what would we do? Would we throw open the borders and just say, we don't have any kind of immigration control? Do we round up everybody and try and move millions of people to different countries? Maddie, if you could suggest one thing that we could do, what would that be?
Immigration reform, provide a pathway to citizenship for billions of individuals that are living in the United States and don't have that pathway currently under the current legislation.
I echo Mari. It's so much needed a reform. With many people that have lived many years here, like 30 years, and on the uncertainty to provide that stability for their families.
Yeah, comprehensive immigration reform needs to occur. It's been decades since the government has addressed this issue. It's not getting any easier. And as the federal government gets more and more divided, I'm concerned that we're leaving many people in the balance and limiting their ability to contribute to this beautiful society of ours, which was founded by immigrants who came from a country that was not the United States and conquered the Native Americans to be here. And so just, I think given the founding of our country and what we've always done, it just seems ridiculous that we haven't prioritized this in decades.
I would also agree comprehensive immigration reform is needed and necessary and has been for decades. I think that it's important to really, as a country, and also, we see it in our communities. We've got an aging population. We've got, all of the baby boomers retiring, and we don't have the same numbers of workforce coming up behind them. And so I also think that's a component to think about. I think it's not as if we don't have the jobs or the need for those jobs. And we also know that there are ways to manage an immigration system, but when there aren't enough resources and there isn't the cohesive approach from the top, I think it makes it very much more challenging to everybody involved in understanding the best way that they can get, through that system. We've got backlogs in courts. There's just not enough resources to manage the challenges in front of us. And so that's why I think comprehensive immigration reform would be so important.
I'd like to go out by making one point. There's not a place in the United States where this isn't an issue. You have this issue in different forms in Florida, in Texas, in Louisiana, in all of the southern states. In California, you have this issue in the Midwest. You have this issue in Denver. You have this issue in Utah. You have this issue every single state, in Minnesota, in Illinois, in Idaho. There is a version of this issue everywhere. And the other point that I want to make is not only is this an issue everywhere, but there are full economies dotted throughout this country that rely on the interactions and the support of immigrant populations. To me, it seems like an un-American and unjust situation to have economic systems built on people who are designated as illegal. There needs to be some sort of an accommodation where the laws embrace in a legal way the integration of people into our economy, because that economy, our wealth, is being built on the labor and on the participation of those individuals. We owe a symmetrical consideration. If we are getting so much from the contributions of these individuals and groups, we should also, as a society, support them. I'd like to thank Blanca Huijon, Executive Director of Puertas, Abiertas, Jenny Ocon, Executive Director of UpValley Family Centers, Madeline Hernandez, North Bay Regional Directing Attorney of the Immigration Institute of the Bay Area, and Alissa Abdo, Executive Director of On the Move. I'd like to also thank, please, your staffs, your donors, your board members, and most importantly, your constituents who are also contributing to your work and to our communities in real material ways. So thank you so much.